In the heart of Pennsylvania lies a dense, ancient forest known as the Forgotten Grove. Shrouded in mist and mystery, this forest had a reputation for strange happenings. Locals spoke in hushed tones about the eerie sounds that echoed through the trees at night, the inexplicable cold spots even in the heat of summer, and the sense of being watched by unseen eyes. It was a place avoided by hunters and hikers alike, for the grove was said to be haunted by a spirit from a bygone era. The tale begins with a group of friends who decided to venture into the forest despite the warnings. There were 5 of them: Jack, the adventurous leader; Sarah, the skeptic; Tom, the historian; Lily, the sensitive artist; and Mike, the practical one. They had heard the stories, of course, but they dismissed them as superstitious nonsense. What better way to spend a weekend than to explore a forbidden place and debunk the local legends? They packed their gear and set out on a crisp autumn morning, the trees ablaze with the reds and golds of fall. The forest was silent, save for the occasional rustle of leaves underfoot and the distant call of a crow. The deeper they ventured, the thicker the canopy became, until the sunlight barely penetrated the dense foliage, casting an almost perpetual twilight around them. Jack led the way, compass in hand, confidently navigating the twisting paths that seemed to lead them deeper into the heart of the forest. Tom, with his historical curiosity, recounted tales of the land's past, stories of settlers who had disappeared, battles fought long ago, and whispers of an old hermit who was said to have lived there centuries past. As the day wore on, they reached a clearing dominated by an ancient oak tree, its gnarled branches reaching out like the arms of a long-forgotten deity. They decided to set up camp here for the night. The atmosphere was strangely oppressive, as if the forest itself were holding its breath. Lily wandered off to sketch the scenery, her eyes wide with wonder at the natural beauty around her. Sarah and Mike busied themselves with setting up the tents and gathering firewood. Jack and Tom examined the area, looking for any signs of wildlife or interesting landmarks. As dusk fell, they gathered around a campfire, the flames dancing and crackling in the cool evening air. Tom began to share more detailed stories about the forest's history, his voice low and dramatic. He spoke of the hermit, a man named Elias Grimshaw, who had lived alone in the forest in the late 1700s. According to legend, Grimshaw had been a recluse, shunning society and living off the land. Some said he was a healer, others claimed he was a sorcerer, but all agreed on one thing: his spirit still roamed the forest, restless and vengeful. The friends laughed it off, teasing Tom for his overactive imagination. But as the night deepened, an unsettling stillness settled over the camp. The usual sounds of the forest chirping crickets, the occasional owl hoot seemed to vanish, replaced by an eerie silence. It was Lily who first noticed something was wrong. She had been sketching by the firelight, lost in her own world, when she felt a sudden chill. Looking up, she saw a figure standing at the edge of the clearing, barely visible in the flickering light, tall and thin, with eyes that seemed to glow in the darkness. "Guys," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Do you see that?" The others turned, their laughter dying on their lips. There, at the edge of the firelight, stood the figure. It was a man, dressed in tattered, old-fashioned clothes. His eyes, cold and piercing, seemed to bore into each of them. Jack, ever the leader, stood up and called out, "Hey! Who's there?" The figure didn't respond. It simply stood there, watching them. A feeling of dread washed over the group, a primal fear that they couldn't explain. Jack took a step forward, but before he could speak again, the figure vanished, melting into the shadows as if it had never been there. The friends were left in stunned silence, the night suddenly feeling much colder. They exchanged nervous glances, trying to rationalize what they had seen. Maybe it was a trick of the light, or their minds playing tricks on them. But deep down, they all felt the same unspoken fear. They were not alone in the Forgotten Grove. That night, sleep did not come easily. The sounds of the forest returned, but they were different now, sharper, more menacing. Branches creaked like ancient bones, and the wind whispered secrets they couldn't understand. Each of them lay awake, listening, their minds racing with the possibilities of what they had encountered. As the first light of dawn broke through the trees, they silently packed up their camp, a mutual understanding that their adventure had come to an unexpected end. They needed to leave the forest, and fast. But as they made their way back through the labyrinth of trees, The feeling of being watched never left them. Little did they know, their encounter with Elias Grimshaw was just the beginning. The ghost of the Forgotten Grove had awakened, and it had no intention of letting them go so easily. The friends would soon discover that some legends are rooted in truth, and some spirits are more restless than others. The friends trudged through the forest, the weight of the previous night hanging heavily over them. Every shadow seemed to hide something sinister, every rustling leaf a potential threat. The forest, which had seemed merely mysterious before, now felt actively hostile. Jack led the way, his usual confidence diminished but still guiding them with determination. As they walked, Tom kept glancing over his shoulder, the historian in him struggling to reconcile the apparition with his rational mind. Sarah, always the skeptic, kept her thoughts to herself, but her pale face and darting eyes betrayed her unease. Lily clutched her sketchbook to her chest, her artistic spirit shaken by the encounter, while Mike, ever practical, kept his focus on their surroundings, his hand never far from the hunting knife at his belt. The journey back seemed longer, the paths more twisted and confusing than before. Hours passed, and the sun rose higher, but the dense canopy overhead kept them in a state of perpetual twilight. They were lost in the maze of trees, the familiar landmarks from the previous day now elusive and distorted. It was Sarah who first spoke up, breaking the tense silence. "We're going in circles," she said, her voice strained. "We should have been out of here by now." Jack stopped and pulled out the map, his brow furrowing. "I don't understand it. We followed the same path we came in on." Tom looked around, his face drawn with worry. "This forest, it's playing tricks on us. The stories I read, they said people disappeared here without a trace." Lily shivered. "Do you think it's Grimshaw, the ghost?" Mike shook his head, trying to stay logical. "Ghost or not, we need to find our way out. We can't afford to panic." But panic was already setting in. The shadows seemed to grow darker, the air colder. It was as if the forest itself was alive, shifting and changing to keep them trapped. The feeling of being watched was constant, the eyes of Elias Grimshaw ever present. As they continued, they stumbled upon an old, dilapidated cabin, hidden deep within the woods. It was a relic of another time, its wooden walls covered in moss and ivy. The door hung ajar, creaking slightly in the breeze. "Maybe we can find something useful in there," Jack suggested, though his voice lacked its usual conviction. The group approached the cabin cautiously. Inside it was dark and musty, the air thick with the scent of decay. Broken furniture and debris littered the floor, and cobwebs hung like delicate curtains in the corners. Tom's eyes lit up with a mix of fear and fascination as he examined the remnants of a past life. "This must have been Grimshaw's place," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Look at these old tools, the way the furniture is made. It fits the period." Sarah shuddered. "I don't care whose place it was. Let's just find something to help us get out of here." They searched the cabin, their movements careful and deliberate. In a corner, Lily found an old journal, its pages yellowed and brittle with age. She opened it, her eyes scanning the faded handwriting. "Listen to this," she said, reading aloud. "It's Grimshaw's journal. He writes about the forest, about feeling a presence watching him. He talks about strange lights and voices in the night." Jack looked over her shoulder. "Anything about how to get out of here?" Lily shook her head. "No, just his fears and... Oh, this is interesting. He mentions a ritual, something to appease the spirits of the forest." Tom's eyes widened. Lily read further, her voice trembling. "He talks about making an offering to the forest, something precious. He believed it would keep the spirits at bay." Sarah scoffed. "You're not seriously considering this, are you?" "It's just an old man's ramblings." Mike looked thoughtful. "What if it's not? What if that's the only way out of here?" The group fell silent, the weight of the decision pressing down on them. They had little choice. The forest had them in its grip, and they needed a way out. As night began to fall, they gathered the items for the ritual as described in Grimshaw's journal. They found an old silver locket, a relic of Grimshaw's life, and placed it on a makeshift altar of stones. Lily, with her artistic touch, arranged flowers and leaves around it, hoping to appease whatever spirits might be watching. They lit a fire and stood around the altar, the flames casting eerie shadows on their faces. Tom recited the words from the journal, his voice shaking. As he finished, the forest seemed to hold its breath, the silence deep and unsettling. For a moment, nothing happened. The friends exchanged nervous glances, wondering if they had made a mistake. But then, a cold wind swept through the clearing, extinguishing their fire. The temperature dropped sharply, and the oppressive silence was broken by a distant, mournful wail. Out of the darkness, the figure of Elias Grimshaw appeared again, his eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. He moved towards them, his presence more solid, more real than before. The friends backed away, fear gripping their hearts. Grimshaw stopped at the altar, his gaze fixed on the offering. He reached out a spectral hand, touching the locket. For a moment, his face softened, the anger and sadness giving way to a look of profound relief. Then, as quickly as he had appeared, he vanished, leaving the friends standing in stunned silence. The forest around them seemed to exhale, the oppressive atmosphere lifting. The sounds of the night returned, and the path ahead of them became clear. They had done it. The ritual had worked. With renewed hope, they made their way out of the forest, the haunting presence of Elias Grimshaw now a memory. But as they emerged into the daylight, they knew they would never forget the experience. The Forgotten Grove had claimed a part of them, and the legend of Elias Grimshaw had become a part of their lives forever. The friends emerged from the Forgotten Grove, exhausted but relieved to see the sunlight. Their faces were pale, and their eyes reflected the haunted look of people who had come too close to the unknown. They didn't speak much as they piled into Jack's SUV, the silence punctuated only by the occasional rustling of leaves or distant bird call. The oppressive weight of the forest seemed to cling to them, like an invisible shroud they couldn't quite shake off. Back in town, they found it difficult to explain their ordeal. Who would believe them? They were sure the townsfolk would dismiss their story as mere fancy, or worse, a desperate cry for attention. So they kept the details vague, attributing their early return to getting lost and having a close encounter with wildlife. It was enough to satisfy curious friends and family without inviting further scrutiny. Days turned into weeks, and the events of that night began to fade into the recesses of their minds. They tried to return to their normal routines, but the experience had changed them. Each of them carried a piece of the forest with them, a gnawing sense of unease that lingered in the back of their minds. Lily, always the most sensitive among them, was the first to notice the signs. She was working late in her studio one night, trying to finish a painting that had been eluding her for weeks. The room was dimly lit, the only light coming from a single desk lamp. As she brushed the canvas, she felt a chill run down her spine. The hair on the back of her neck stood up, and she had the unmistakable feeling of being watched. She turned around quickly, but the room was empty. She shook her head, trying to dispel the creeping fear. "It's just your imagination," she muttered to herself, but the feeling wouldn't go away. It was as if the shadows themselves were alive, watching her with unseen eyes. Over the next few days, the feeling grew stronger. She began to see fleeting glimpses of a figure in her peripheral vision, always disappearing when she turned to look directly. Her paintings took on a darker, more disturbing tone, filled with shadowy figures and twisted landscapes. She couldn't escape the sense that Grimshaw was still with her, his spirit somehow bound to her through that night in the forest. Lily wasn't alone in her torment. Jack started experiencing vivid nightmares, his dreams filled with the image of Grimshaw's glowing eyes and the suffocating darkness of the forest. He would wake up in a cold sweat, the terror lingering long after he had shaken off sleep. During the day, he became jumpy and irritable, his usual confidence eroded by the persistent fear gnawing at his mind. Sarah, the skeptic, tried to rationalize her experiences. She dismissed the odd occurrences at first, the lights flickering, the strange cold spots in her apartment, the inexplicable sense of dread that would wash over her at random moments. But as the incidents became more frequent and harder to ignore, she began to doubt her own sanity. Her logical mind struggled to find explanations, but there were none that could account for the creeping terror she felt. Tom threw himself into researching the history of the forest and Elias Grimshaw, hoping to find some answer or solution. He spent hours in the local library, poring over old maps, journals, and historical records. The more he learned, the more convinced he became that they had indeed encountered something supernatural. He found references to Grimshaw's life as a healer and a recluse, but also darker hints of forbidden rituals and dealings with otherworldly forces. His obsession grew, and he began to isolate himself, his friends and family becoming increasingly concerned about his mental state. Mike, ever the practical one, tried to move on and ignore the strange occurrences, but even he couldn't escape the sense of dread that followed him. He began to notice patterns, like the same crow that seemed to follow him wherever he went, or the way his tools would mysteriously move from where he had left them. He told himself it was just coincidence, but deep down, he knew something was terribly wrong. The turning point came one night when the group gathered at Tom's apartment for dinner. They hadn't seen much of each other since their return, each dealing with their own fears in isolation. The mood was tense, the conversation stilted and awkward. They avoided talking about the forest, but it hung over them like a dark cloud, unspoken but ever present. Halfway through the meal, the lights flickered and the room grew cold. The air seemed to thicken, pressing in on them. Lily gasped, her eyes wide with fear as she pointed to the corner of the room. There, standing in the shadows, was the figure of Elias Grimshaw, more solid and menacing than ever before. His eyes glowed with a malevolent light, and his presence filled the room with an overwhelming sense of dread. Jack stood up, his voice shaking. "What do you want from us?" he demanded. Grimshaw's eyes flickered to Jack, and a cold smile spread across his spectral face. "You cannot escape me," he whispered, his voice like the rustling of dry leaves. "You brought me back, and now you must pay the price." The friends huddled together, fear gripping their hearts. They had thought the ritual had appeased Grimshaw, but it seemed they had only awakened a deeper, more vengeful spirit. The room grew darker, the shadows closing in around them. They could feel Grimshaw's presence, his anger and sorrow wrapping around them like a suffocating shroud. In that moment of terror, they knew they had to find a way to end this. They couldn't live their lives in fear, haunted by a spirit from the past. They had to return to the forest, to confront Grimshaw, and lay his spirit to rest once and for all. The thought was terrifying, but it was their only hope. As Grimshaw's figure faded into the darkness, the friends made a silent pact. They would face their fears and return to the Forgotten Grove. They had no choice. Their lives, their sanity, depended on it. The decision to return to the Forgotten Grove weighed heavily on the group. They spent the next few days preparing, gathering supplies, and steeling their nerves. Each of them knew that confronting Grimshaw's spirit again would be dangerous, but they were determined to put an end to the haunting that had taken over their lives. They met at Jack's house early one morning, the sky still dark with the promise of dawn. The mood was somber, the air thick with unspoken fears and anxieties. Jack, ever the leader, tried to offer words of encouragement, but even he couldn't mask his apprehension. "Remember why we're doing this?" he said, his voice steady. "We have to end this, for all of us." Sarah nodded, her skepticism now replaced with grim resolve. "We need to find whatever it is that's keeping Grimshaw here. There has to be a way to lay his spirit to rest." Tom, clutching a folder filled with his research, added, "I've been reading more about Grimshaw in the forest. There are references to a hidden grave, a place where he was buried with certain VJ+ items. If we can find it, maybe we can figure out how to break the connection." Lily, her face pale and drawn, said quietly, "I've been having dreams. They're not just nightmares, they feel like messages. Grimshaw is trying to show me something. I think I know where we need to go." Mike, practical as ever, had packed extra flashlights, ropes, and other equipment. "We stick together this time, no matter what. If things get rough, we get out of there. Agreed?" The others nodded, and with a final check of their gear, they set out once more towards the Forgotten Grove. The drive was silent, each of them lost in their thoughts, bracing for the ordeal ahead. The entrance to the forest loomed before them, more foreboding than ever. As they stepped into the shadows of the trees, the air grew colder, and the sense of being watched returned almost immediately. They followed the same path they had taken weeks before, but this time, the forest seemed more hostile, the underbrush thicker, the paths less clear. Lily led the way, her instincts guiding them deeper into the heart of the forest. Her dreams had shown her a clearing with an ancient gnarled tree, much like the one they had camped near before. The journey was arduous, the forest resisting their progress at every turn. Hours passed, and the daylight began to wane. Just as the sun dipped below the horizon, They emerged into a small clearing. In the center stood the tree from Lily's dreams, its twisted branches reaching towards the sky like skeletal fingers. The ground around it was disturbed, the soil uneven and marked by what looked like old graves. "This is it," Lily whispered, a mix of fear and determination in her voice. "This is where we need to be." Tom consulted his notes, his eyes scanning the landscape. Grimshaw's journal mentioned he was buried with talisman objects that held significance for him. "If we can find them, maybe we can end this." They spread out, carefully searching the area. Jack and Mike started digging near the base of the tree, while Sarah and Tom looked for any markers or signs of a grave. Lily, her heart pounding, walked around the perimeter, her eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of Grimshaw's spirit. Minutes turned into hours, the darkness growing thicker around them. Just as they were about to lose hope, Jack's shovel hit something solid. He knelt down, brushing away the dirt to reveal a small weathered chest. He pried it open, revealing its contents: a silver locket, a worn leather-bound book, and several small, intricately carved wooden figures. "These must be the talismans," Jack said, his voice barely above a whisper. Tom carefully examined the items. According to Grimshaw's writings, these objects were meant to protect him in the afterlife, but they might also be the key to releasing his spirit. Lily felt a chill run down her spine. "We need to do something with them. Maybe we need to destroy them." Sarah looked skeptical. Destroying them could make things worse. "What if we try returning them to where they belong? Maybe that will appease him." Before they could decide, the air grew colder, and a familiar haunting presence filled the clearing. The figure of Elias Grimshaw materialized before them, his eyes glowing with a malevolent light. "You have disturbed my rest," he hissed, his voice echoing with anger and sorrow. "Why have you come back?" The friends stood their ground, fear gripping their hearts. Jack stepped forward, holding the locket. "We want to help you find peace. Tell us how to end this." Grimshaw's eyes flickered to the talismans, his expression unreadable. "These items bound me to this place. They were meant to protect me, but they have become my prison. Return them to the earth, and perhaps I can finally be free." With trembling hands, the friends began to bury the talismans at the base of the tree. As they did, the ground seemed to pulse with energy, the air growing thick with an otherworldly presence. Grimshaw watched them, his expression softening as the items disappeared into the soil. When the last talisman was buried, Grimshaw's figure began to fade, his eyes losing their glow. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice filled with a profound sense of relief. "May you never know the torment I have endured." As he vanished, the oppressive atmosphere lifted, the air growing warmer and the forest returning to its natural state. The friends stood in stunned silence, the weight of what they had done slowly sinking in. They had faced their fears and freed a tormented spirit, but the experience had changed them forever. They made their way back through the forest, the path now clear and unobstructed. The sunlight broke through the canopy as they emerged from the trees, a sense of relief washing over them. They had done it. They had faced the darkness and come out the other side. In the weeks that followed, the haunting presence that had plagued them began to fade. The nightmares, the cold spots, and the feeling of being watched gradually disappeared. They knew they would never forget what they had experienced, but they also knew they had found a way to move on. The Forgotten Grove remained a place of mystery and legend, but for Jack, Sarah, Tom, Lily, and Mike, it was a chapter they could finally close. They had confronted the past, and in doing so, they had reclaimed their futures. The relief that washed over them after their return from the forest was palpable. The lingering sense of dread and the eerie occurrences in their daily lives began to dissipate. Each friend slowly reclaimed their routine, but the bond they shared was strengthened by the ordeal they had faced together. Lily found her artistic inspiration returning in full force. Her paintings, once dark and haunted, now brimmed with light and hope. She held an exhibition showcasing her new work, and the response was overwhelmingly positive. As she stood in the gallery, surrounded by admirers, she felt a profound sense of peace. The forest had taken much from her, but it had also given her a deeper understanding of resilience and creativity. Jack threw himself back into his work, his confidence slowly rebuilding. The nightmares that had plagued him began to fade, replaced by dreams of new adventures and possibilities. He took up rock climbing, finding solace and clarity in the physical challenge. On weekends, he often led his friends on hikes less harrowing than their journey into the Forgotten Grove, but filled with the same spirit of exploration. Sarah, the skeptic-turned-believer, began to study the paranormal with a new perspective. Her initial fear had transformed into curiosity and respect for the unknown. She joined a local paranormal investigation group, applying her analytical skills to understand phenomena that defied conventional explanation. Her experiences in the forest had opened her mind, and she felt a renewed sense of purpose in uncovering the mysteries of the world. Tom, ever the historian, published a detailed account of their adventure. He carefully omitted the supernatural elements, framing it as a historical exploration of the Forgotten Grove and Elias Grimshaw. The book was well received, praised for its thorough research and engaging narrative. Privately, he continued to delve into the darker aspects of history, driven by a fascination with the unseen forces that shape our lives. Mike, the practical one, channeled his energy into community service. He volunteered with search and rescue teams, his experience in the forest giving him a unique edge in navigating difficult terrains. He found fulfillment in helping others, his pragmatic approach a steadying influence on those around him. Despite their individual pursuits, the friends remained close. They often gathered at Jack's house for dinner, reminiscing about their shared adventure and the bond it had forged. They had faced something extraordinary together, and it had changed them in ways they couldn't fully articulate. One evening, as they sat around the table, Lily brought up a topic that had been on all their minds. "Do you think it's really over? Grimshaw, the forest DJRs, do you think we've truly laid it all to rest?" Jack leaned back in his chair, thoughtful. "I think we did what we needed to do. We helped Grimshaw find peace, and we found our own in the process." Sarah nodded. "But we also learned that there are things out there we can't explain. Maybe it's not about ending it, but about understanding it and respecting it." Tom, ever the historian, added, "Legends persist for a reason. The Forgotten Grove will always have its mysteries, and maybe that's not such a bad thing. It keeps us curious, makes us question what we think we know." Mike raised his glass. "To us, and to facing the unknown. Whatever comes next, we'll handle it together." They clinked glasses, a silent toast to their friendship and the journey they had shared. The conversation shifted to lighter topics, but the sense of camaraderie remained, a testament to the strength they had found in each other. As the months passed, life continued to move forward. The friends stayed connected, their bond a source of comfort and strength. The memories of the Forgotten Grove lingered, a reminder of the fragility of life and the power of courage and friendship. Then, one crisp autumn morning, nearly a year after their ordeal, Lily received an unexpected package. It was an old, weathered book, the cover embossed with intricate designs. Inside, a letter in elegant handwriting explained that the book had been found in the attic of a recently purchased house near the forest. The new owners had discovered it and thought it might be of interest to her. Lily's heart raced as she read the letter and flipped through the book's pages. It was filled with detailed accounts of rituals, old legends, and maps of the forest, including parts they had never explored. There were sketches that looked strikingly familiar trees, clearings, and even the ancient oak where they had found Grimshaw's talismans. Excitedly, she called Jack, Sarah, Tom, and Mike, urging them to come over immediately. As they gathered around her kitchen table, Lily shared the book with them. The sense of adventure rekindled, and they pored over the pages, their curiosity piqued once more. "This changes everything," Tom said, his eyes wide with excitement. "There's so much more to the forest than we realized." Jack nodded, a determined look on his face. "We need to go back. There are still questions we need to answer." Sarah, though apprehensive, agreed. "We know what we're up against now. We can handle it." Mike smiled, his practical nature tempered by the thrill of discovery. "Let's do it, together." And so the friends prepared for another journey into the Forgotten Grove, not out of fear or necessity, but driven by a shared sense of purpose and the unyielding human spirit to explore the unknown. They had faced the darkness and come out stronger, and now they were ready to uncover the deeper secrets of the forest that had become a part of their lives. With the mysterious book as their guide, the friends prepared for their return to the Forgotten Grove. This time, They approached the forest with a mixture of apprehension and excitement, their hearts steeled by the knowledge and experience they had gained from their first encounter. They packed their gear meticulously, each item chosen with care, understanding the importance of being prepared for whatever the forest might throw at them. They met at Jack's house once more, the book spread out on the kitchen table, its pages filled with maps, sketches, and notes about the forest. Tom, the historian, had spent countless hours studying the book, cross-referencing its contents with other historical texts. "This book is incredible," Tom said, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "It's like a guide to the hidden secrets of the forest. There are references to ancient rituals, hidden paths, and even a lost settlement that predates Grimshaw." Lily, who had been the first to receive the book, nodded. "I've had dreams about some of these places. It's like the forest is calling us back, asking us to uncover its secrets." Sarah, ever the skeptic but now more open-minded, looked thoughtful. "If we go back, we need to be careful. We can't afford to let our guard down. We don't know what else we might encounter." Jack, the leader, put a hand on Sarah's shoulder. "We've faced Grimshaw and come out the other side. Whatever we find, we'll handle it together." Mike, practical as always, added, "Let's make sure we have everything we need. We don't know how long we'll be out there this time." With their plans laid out, they set off for the Forgotten Grove, the early morning light casting long shadows on the road ahead. The drive was filled with a mix of nervous chatter and quiet reflection, each friend lost in their own thoughts about the journey ahead. As they reached the edge of the forest, the familiar sense of unease settled over them, but it was tempered by their newfound determination. They entered the forest with a sense of purpose, following the maps and notes from the book. The path was less treacherous than before, as if the forest was guiding them, acknowledging their resolve. Hours passed as they trekked deeper into the woods, the air growing colder and the shadows lengthening. They reached a clearing, different from the one where they had encountered Grimshaw, but eerily similar. In the center stood a stone circle, ancient and weathered, its surface covered in strange symbols and carvings. "This is it," Tom said, his voice hushed with awe. "The book mentioned a place of power, a nexus of energy in the forest. This must be it." Lily knelt beside one of the stones, tracing the carvings with her fingers. "These symbols VDJ. They're like the ones in my dreams." "There's a connection here, something we need to understand." Sarah, scanning the surroundings, added, "If this place is important, it might hold the key to the forest's secrets. We should be careful." As they explored the stone circle, they discovered a hidden entrance beneath a layer of moss and leaves. It led to an underground chamber, the air inside cool and musty. They descended cautiously, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The chamber was small but filled with artifacts, sold tools, pottery, and more carvings on the walls. In the center stood an altar, much like the one they had created during their first encounter with Grimshaw. On it lay a scroll, its parchment brittle with age. Tom carefully unrolled the scroll, his eyes scanning the text. "This is incredible. It's a record of the settlement, the people who lived here, and their rituals. It talks about a pact with the forest spirits, an agreement to protect the land and its secrets." Jack leaned in, reading over Tom's shoulder. It sounds like they were guardians, much like Grimshaw. Maybe that's why he was drawn here, why his spirit couldn't find peace. Lily, her eyes closed as if in a trance, began to speak softly. They were keepers of the forest's magic, bound to protect its secrets. When the settlers left, the guardianship passed to Grimshaw, and when he died, the burden became his prison. Sarah, her voice firm, said, "We need to honor their pact, complete the rituals, and restore the balance. It's the only way to truly end this." The friends set to work, using the information from the scroll and the book to perform the ancient rituals. They gathered items from the chamber symbols of the forest's power and history and placed them on the altar. As they recited the incantations, the air around them seemed to hum with energy, the walls of the chamber vibrating with an otherworldly force. As the final words of the ritual echoed through the chamber, a blinding light filled the room, and the friends were engulfed in a wave of warmth and peace. The light slowly faded, and they found themselves back in the clearing, the stone circle glowing faintly with a gentle, ethereal light. The oppressive atmosphere of the forest had lifted, replaced by a sense of tranquility and harmony. The friends stood in silence, absorbing the magnitude of what they had achieved. "We did it," Jack said quietly, a a smile spreading across his face. "We honored the pact and restored the balance." Tom nodded, his eyes filled with gratitude. The forest is at peace now, and so is Grimshaw. "Lily," her heart light, added, "we've uncovered the forest's secrets and become a part of its history. It's a connection that will stay with us forever." As they made their way back through the forest, the path now clear and welcoming, they felt a sense of closure and accomplishment. They had faced their fears, uncovered the mysteries of the Forgotten Grove, and restored peace to a tormented spirit. Back in town, they shared their story with those who would listen, careful to frame it in a way that respected the forest's secrets. They knew that the true power of the Forgotten Grove lay in its mysteries, and they had become its guardians in their own right. Their bond stronger than ever, the friends continued to explore and seek out new adventures, their lives forever intertwined with the legend of the Forgotten Grove. And as the seasons changed, the forest remained a place of wonder and mystery, its secrets safe with those who understood the importance of balance and respect. The following months were filled with a mix of normalcy and reflection for the friends. Each of them felt a deep connection to the forest and a sense of guardianship over its secrets. They had restored balance and honored a centuries-old pact, but the impact of their journey continued to resonate in their lives. Jack, now a seasoned leader, felt a renewed sense of purpose. His confidence had returned fully, bolstered by the knowledge that he had faced and conquered real danger. He continued to lead his friends on new hikes and adventures, always mindful of the lessons learned from the Forgotten Grove. He had become more attuned to nature, often finding solace and clarity in the great outdoors. Lily's art flourished, her paintings now filled with vibrant colors and themes of renewal and harmony. She held another exhibition, this one dedicated to the forest. Her work captured the ethereal beauty and mystery of the Forgotten Grove, drawing people in and making them see the world through her eyes. The forest had become her muse, its secrets and magic inspiring her in ways she had never imagined. Sarah's journey took a more scholarly turn. She decided to pursue a degree in parapsychology, eager to understand the phenomena she had experienced. Her skepticism had evolved into a passionate curiosity, and she wanted to blend scientific inquiry with a respect for the unknown. Her studies brought her into contact with other researchers and enthusiasts, and she became a respected voice in the field, often sharing her first-hand experiences to shed light on the mysteries of the paranormal. Tom's book on the Forgotten Grove garnered critical acclaim. He received numerous invitations to speak at universities and historical societies, his detailed research and gripping storytelling captivating audiences. His experience in the forest had given him a unique perspective, and he used his platform to advocate for the preservation of historical sites and the importance of respecting the past. Mike's commitment to search and rescue work deepened. He felt a profound sense of duty to help those in need, his practical skills and calm demeanor making him a valuable team member. He often thought about the challenges they had faced in the forest, using those memories to guide his actions and decisions. He also found time to teach wilderness survival courses, sharing his knowledge and ensuring that others were better prepared for the unexpected. One crisp autumn evening, almost a year after their second journey into the forest, the friends gathered at Jack's house for a dinner party. The air was filled with the aroma of roasting meat and seasonal vegetables, the warmth of the fire creating a cozy atmosphere. They reminisced about their shared experiences and discussed their recent endeavors, the bond between them stronger than ever. As the night grew late and the conversation turned to quieter reflections, Lily brought out the mysterious book that had guided them on their second journey. She placed it on the table, its weathered pages a reminder of their incredible adventure. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice thoughtful. "This book found its way to us for a reason. I believe there are still secrets in the forest, stories waiting to be uncovered. What if we continue our exploration, not out of necessity, but out of a desire to learn and protect?" Jack nodded, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "I agree. We've barely scratched the surface of what the Forgotten Grove holds. There's so much more to discover, and we're in a unique position to do it." Sarah leaned forward, her academic curiosity piqued. "We could document our findings, create a detailed record of the forest's history and its supernatural elements. It would be invaluable to both historians and paranormal researchers." Tom smiled, the prospect of further research lighting a fire within him. And we can ensure that the forest is protected, that its secrets are respected. We can be its guardians, just as Grimshaw and those before him were. Mike raised his glass. To us, the modern-day keepers of the Forgotten Grove, let's continue our journey. Together. They clinked glasses, the shared understanding and purpose palpable. The Forgotten Grove had become more than just a place. It was a part of their lives, a source of endless fascination and respect. They were ready to continue their exploration, to uncover more secrets and ensure that the forest remained a place of mystery and wonder. The following weekend, they set out once more, equipped with new tools and a deeper understanding of the forest's nature. The path to the stone circle was familiar now, the trees and underbrush welcoming them back like old friends. The air was crisp, the leaves a riot of autumn colors, and the forest seemed to hum with anticipation. As they reached the clearing, they found the stone circle bathed in sunlight, the ancient carvings glowing softly. They gathered around the altar, their hearts filled with a sense of purpose and excitement. This time, Jack said, his voice strong and confident, we explore with open minds and open hearts. We're here to learn, to protect, and to honor the legacy of the Forgotten Grove. Lily, her eyes bright with inspiration, added, and to capture the beauty and mystery of this place in our own ways. We're part of its story now. Sarah, Tom, and Mike nodded in agreement, their resolve firm. They set off in different directions, each following their instincts and the guidance of the book. The forest seemed to welcome them, the air alive with possibility. As they delved deeper into the heart of the Forgotten Grove, they discovered new paths, hidden clearings, and ancient relics. They found more evidence of the lost settlement, uncovering artifacts that spoke of a rich and complex history. They documented everything meticulously, their notes, sketches, and photographs, creating a detailed record of their findings. The forest revealed its secrets slowly, each discovery a testament to the patience and respect the friends had shown. They encountered moments of wonder and awe, their connection to the forest deepening with each step. They also faced challenges, the forest testing their resolve and pushing them to their limits. One evening, as they sat around a campfire in a newly discovered clearing, they reflected on their journey and the bond they shared. The fire crackled, the flames casting dancing shadows on their faces. "We've come so far," Sarah said, her voice filled with pride. "We've learned so much, and there's still so much more to uncover." Tom nodded, his eyes thoughtful. "The history of this place is rich and deep. We're just beginning to understand it." Lily, her heart full, added, "And through it all, we've grown closer, stronger. The forest has given us more than just its secrets. It's given us each other." Jack, looking around at his friends, smiled. "We're the keepers of the Forgotten Grove, its guardians and protectors, and will continue to honor its legacy, together." As the fire burned low and the stars appeared overhead, they felt a profound sense of fulfillment and purpose. The Forgotten Grove had become a part of their lives, its mysteries a source of endless fascination and respect. And as they looked to the future, they knew that their journey was far from over. Together they would continue to explore, to learn, and to protect the forest they had come to love. The Forgotten Grove had entrusted its secrets to them, and they had proven themselves worthy. The adventure, the mystery, and the bond they shared would endure, a testament to the power of friendship and the magic of the unknown. In the months that followed, the friends' bond grew even stronger as they continued to explore and document the Forgotten Grove. Their discoveries were meticulously recorded, and their respect for the forest's secrets deepened with each new revelation. They had become modern-day guardians, their purpose clear and their dedication unwavering. One brisk autumn morning, nearly 2 years after their initial encounter with Elias Grimshaw, they decided to undertake their most ambitious expedition yet. They planned to explore a remote area of the forest that had been hinted at in the mysterious book but had remained elusive. The entries described it as the heart of the grove, a place where the forest's energy was said to be at its most potent. Equipped with advanced gear, maps, and a renewed sense of determination, they set out at dawn. The air was crisp, and the forest seemed to buzz with anticipation. They navigated through dense underbrush and overgrown paths, the familiar sounds of nature their only guide. As they ventured deeper, the trees grew taller and more ancient, their gnarled branches forming a canopy that blocked out the sky. The forest floor was soft with moss, and the air grew cooler. the sense of being watched ever present but now comforting rather than threatening. They followed a faint trail, marked only by the subtle signs left by those who had come before them. After several hours of trekking, they reached a clearing unlike any they had seen before. In the center stood a massive ancient oak tree, its branches stretching out like the protective arms of an old guardian. The air around the tree shimmered with an ethereal glow, and the ground beneath it was covered in a soft, luminescent moss. "This must be it," Lily whispered, her voice filled with awe. "The heart of the grove." The friends stood in silence, absorbing the majesty of the place. It felt sacred, as if they had stumbled upon a hidden sanctuary. They approached the tree with reverence, each of them feeling the energy that radiated from its core. Tom, ever the historian, began to document their surroundings, his notes capturing the essence of the place. Sarah took careful measurements and readings, her scientific mind eager to understand the phenomena they were experiencing. Jack and Mike examined the tree and the surrounding area, looking for any signs of the rituals or artifacts mentioned in the book. As they worked, Lily sat at the base of the tree, her sketchbook in hand. She felt a deep connection to the grove, as if the forest itself was guiding her hand. She began to draw, her lines capturing the mystical energy that flowed through the clearing. As the day wore on, they discovered a series of ancient carvings on the tree's trunk, hidden beneath layers of moss and lichen. The symbols were intricate and complex, unlike any they had seen before. Tom carefully transcribed them, his excitement palpable. "These carvings, Jay, they're a language, a story," he said, his voice trembling with excitement. "They tell of the guardians, the rituals, and the pact made with the forest. This tree is a record of everything that has happened here." Sarah examined the carvings closely, her analytical mind piecing together the story. It's a history of the forgotten grove, preserved in the very heart of the forest. This place, Vigiles, it's more than just a sanctuary. It's the living memory of the forest. Jack and Mike, standing back to observe the entire scene, felt a profound sense of accomplishment. They had uncovered the forest's deepest secret, a testament to their perseverance and respect. As the sun began to set, casting a golden light through the canopy, the friends gathered around the tree. They felt a deep sense of peace and fulfillment, knowing that they had honored the forest and its legacy. "We've done it," Jack said quietly, his voice filled with emotion. "We've uncovered the heart of the forgotten grove. We're part of its story now." Lily, her sketch complete, looked up at her friends with tears in her eyes. "This place of Drplus, it's magical. We're connected to it, and it to us." Tom nodded, his eyes gleaming with pride. "We've become the new guardians, the keepers of its secrets. It's our responsibility to protect and preserve it." Sarah, ever the skeptic turned believer, added, "And to ensure that its legacy is respected and understood. We've seen what can happen when it's disturbed. We owe it to the forest to keep its history alive." Mike, his practical nature tempered by the awe of the moment, raised his hand in a gesture of solidarity. "To us, the guardians of the forgotten grove, may we honor its past and protect its future." They joined hands, forming a circle around the ancient oak. As they stood there, the forest seemed to come alive around them, the trees whispering their approval, the air humming with energy. They felt a deep connection to the land, a bond that transcended time and space. In that moment, they knew that their journey was far from over. The Forgotten Grove had many more secrets to reveal, many more stories to tell, and as its guardians, they were ready to uncover them, to explore the depths of its mystery, and to protect its legacy for generations to come. They left the heart of the grove as the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, their hearts full and their spirits lifted. The path back seemed shorter, the forest now a familiar friend rather than an enigmatic stranger. They returned to town with a renewed sense of purpose, their experiences etched into their souls. The friends continued their lives, their bond unbreakable, and their mission clear. They shared their knowledge carefully, ensuring that the forest's secrets remained protected. They visited the Forgotten Grove often, always respectful, always curious, always guardians. And as the years passed, the forest flourished under their watchful eyes. The legend of the Forgotten Grove grew, whispered in hushed tones by those who knew of its magic and its guardians. The friends had become part of the forest story, and in turn, it had become a part of theirs. The Forgotten Grove remained a place of wonder and mystery, its secrets safe with those who understood the importance of balance and respect. And the friends, now lifelong guardians, knew that their journey would continue, guided by the forest's ancient wisdom and the bond they shared.